Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome to Head to Heart Devos. Thanks for tuning in. Today we get another parable of Jesus and something exciting. He has been heading to Jerusalem this whole time, doing a bunch of teaching, making his way. He was just in Jericho, and now he's getting near Jerusalem. So let's jump into our parable of the minas. What? That is a term for money. Let's go just into it and it'll make a lot more sense. Our verse for today is chapter 19, 11 to 27. While they were listening to this, he went on to tell them a parable because he was near Jerusalem, and the people thought that the kingdom of God was coming to appear at once. He said, "A young man of noble birth went to a distant country to have himself appointed to be king and then to return. So he called 10 of his servants, and he gave them 10 minas." My little note in the Bible here says about 3 months' wages for the average worker. So that's what a minas is, 1 minas. 1 mina is about 3 months' wages for the average worker. So he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas. "Put this money to work," he said, "until I come back. Invest this money, do something with it. I'm giving you this for you to reap a reward." But his subjects hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, "We don't want this man to be our king." He was made king, however, and returned home. Then he sent for the servants to whom he had given the money in order to find out what they had gained with it. The first one came and said, "Sir, your mina has earned 10 more." "Well done, my good servant," his master replied. "Because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities." The second came and said, "Sir, your mina has earned 5 more." His master answered, "You take charge of 5 cities." So the first 2 people did great. They got a return for their money. They did well with the little God gave them, or the master gave them, and he said, "Because of that, I'm going to give you more to be in charge of." But now we have a third servant coming who will not do as well. Another servant came and said, "Sir, here is your mina." So he gives back 1 for 1. "I have kept it laid away in a piece of cloth." He did nothing with it, he just hid it. "I was afraid of you because you're a hard man. You take out what you did not put in and reap what you did not sow." He gives a very interesting answer. It's almost as if he doesn't know his master. He says, "You're a hard man. Even when you don't work somewhere, you get a harvest. Even when you don't put money in, you somehow get something out of it." And so his reasoning is a little odd of like, if that's who your master is, why would you not invest what he's given you? So it's a weird thing. It's pretty much an excuse for not doing what was expected. His master replied, "I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. You knew, did you, that I'm a hard man, taking out what I didn't put in and reaping what I did not sow? Why then didn't you put my money on deposit so that when I came back I could have collected it with interest? So I at least put it in the bank and get some interest. But you just hid it away. You did nothing with it." Then he said to those standing by, "Take his mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10. "Sir," they replied, "he already has 10. He replied, "I tell you that to everyone who has, more will be given, but as for the one who has nothing, even what they have will be taken away. But those enemies of mine who do not want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me." So verse 26 is interesting. He says, "Everyone who has, more will be given, but as for the one who has nothing, even what they have will be taken." It's this example of the servant who doesn't do responsibly with what they're given. God's not going to give them any more to manage. And so the people who have managed well what God has given them, he will give them more responsibility to manage. And so that's a really important thing to see. Those who do well, more will be given. But if you're irresponsible with what God has given, he will take away that thing. And I think what's important to recognize in this whole parable, we started off with it. In verse 11, it started off with this line of, "While they were listening, he went on to tell them a parable because he was near Jerusalem and the people thought the kingdom of God was going to appear at once. The people thought that once Jesus got to Jerusalem, God was going to bring his kingdom. Jesus was going to be king. He was going to control everything and rule everything. But Jesus' point here is that the kingdom of God is not coming right now in this moment in the way they're picturing, but rather it's going to be delayed. And Jesus is actually going to go do a bunch. He's going to leave, and he's going to have a whole second coming. They had no idea about any of this. And the point of this parable is that when the master is gone, when he's not king yet, and there's this period of time when he leaves, his servants are responsible for doing work, for obeying what he's asked of them in the time that he's gone. For us today, we are these servants. If God has left us with this charge to love God and to love people and to live for an eternal kingdom, his second coming, when he comes back and establishes his reign and rule, which is crazy to think about, but when that happens, our goal is to just have been living life on this earth as good servants who are eagerly awaiting their master's coming, who are being responsible with the gifts, the blessings he's given us. We are to be blessing others, to be really making more followers, to what God has given you, to give out and to point others to him. That's our task. That's what will cause him to come back and say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Well done. You have used what I've given you well." We want to be that servant. We do not want to be the one who wastes what God has given. If you're living a selfish existence, what's crazy is a servant, so a Christian can be a bad servant. If you are living for worldly things, if God has gifted you and you're choosing not to show that, you're hiding that away, you're never speaking about Jesus, you're never pointing others to him, you're never living a life of love of God and others. When he comes back, you don't want to be that servant. And so it's a very interesting and heavy topic, but Jesus is pointing to that fact of like, how are you serving me now? And so I think what this story really pushes on is that emphasis of what God has given you in this life. How are you using it? And that's your reflection question for today. The gifts, the time, the talent, the things God has gifted you with, and the things that he expects you to do something with. How are you using those things for him? Or are you like the bad servant who's hiding away the knowledge, the things God has given you to bless others with? Are you using that stuff to serve him, or are you hiding it away? And your prayer point for today is this: God, thank you for blessing me with the things you've given. Thank you for leaving me in this place, in this position, with the things you've given me. God, thank you for blessing me with that, and help me to go out and to bless others, to point others towards you by using the blessings you've given me. That's your prayer for today, and really, man, that's one for our whole lives, is that we could bless others with what God has blessed us with, and just live a life that does not point to yourself, but that points to Jesus. That's our goal as Christians. We reflect the light of Jesus into the world, and it's not to bring ourselves glory, it's to bring him glory. That's why he gifts us, that's why he blesses us, is so that we can point it back to him. So do that today. Have a good one, and I'll see you on Saturday.